Today we're here with Peter Marks. Peter has had an interesting and distinguished career ranging from city councillor to metallurgical engineer to many leadership roles. A pioneer in employee assistance programs as the CEO and founder of EAP Institute Canada. In addition to that, he has trained thousands of people in what he is going to describe to us, which is essentially helping them to become more mindful and compassionate. You're really a pioneer in healthcare and helping healthcare givers deal with people in a compassionate way, which enables them to also have more fulfilling lives. And I'm very excited to get into all that. And so, Peter, thank you so much for being here with us today.
My pleasure, Maria, my pleasure.
I know you as a leader who is results-oriented, who has a tremendous amount of compassion, and who really has his heart in the right place. Essentially a mindful leader. I'd like people to see that and to hear exactly what it is that makes you tick. And I know that you're working on a number of initiatives, and I'd like to hear about all of those. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you got to this place.
Okay. Well, great mommy and daddy and family to start, I'll tell you. But I certainly wasn't, I'm not too sure if I can live up to that billing, but I'd like to think I can. But I certainly wasn't always that compassionate being that you talked about. I was a fighter in junior hockey and came out of business, a pretty competitive business, and politics is not the most congenial way to kind of make your way at the table. You have to use elbows and things. So I started off a pretty naturally competitive guy. And as you mentioned, came out of an engineering background, so whatever I've done is, I've really loved the science of it. So I guess the major influence that I had would be to say that in the late 70s, drugs and alcohol hit pretty hard in our community. It's in Halton. And I started volunteering for the Addiction Research Foundation. I was then manager, fairly senior manager in a division of Rio Algom. With my metallurgical background, I was sales representative and business together with that. And I started volunteering to take care of kids in the street and parents and the likes of that, and pretty soon got pulled into going back and doing my graduate work at the Adler Institute to kind of get retooled, if you will, to make a contribution there. So that brought me into the kind of the human services and kind of health field. Became a regional director for the Addiction Research Foundation out in Halton. And it was then I got introduced to the possibility that we needed more in the healthcare field and human services field than just to be competent and to have great educations and qualifications. I just saw so many people coming into treatment that just were lacking something, and therapists that were lacking something. So I started scouting out for more development myself and came across this thing called mindfulness. This was about 38 years ago, I guess.
Very early days.
Yeah. Took my first retreat down at a place called the Omega Institute in New York, Rhinebeck, New York. And there, that particular retreat was working with Ram Dass, who was kind of in those days, he wrote To Be Here Now and made some great contributions to the field. That brought us into meeting a great man named Shinzen Young. I met him at Omega as well and twisted his arm to become a part of the Canadian scene. He was from California and he didn't really like that at all. But he came to a Canadian winter actually, and I think we brought such warmth to him. He never resisted coming again. So yeah, so then from there, pretty much got into, I stayed with ARF for quite a while, and then had my twin sister had a terminal diagnosis, brain tumor, and I was determined that she was not going to die of a glioblastoma, so I spent 2 years of doing what I could, but I literally drove myself into a deep clinical depression.
When was this?
This would be 1990, 1991, yeah. So I left ARF at that time thinking that if I survived this, that I really just wanted to start into something different. So I came out of there and started to work with a great friend of mine, Brian Skerritt, and we co-founded the EAP Institute of Canada. I CEO'd that operation, and within not too long, well, 5 to 7 years, we grew it to over $2 million in sales, and set up an infrastructure. I had about over 200 direct reports at that time. We sold to Homewood Health out of Guelph, and they took our model basically and went certainly much broader than we even took it out to North America, because they had the capital to do that.
But you were pioneers, really, in
Yeah,
thinking
we were.
about what this
I was
would look
actually
like.
on the Minister of Health Skunk Works group, they called us. There was 5 of us in the province, and the Minister of Health was looking at all of these people were coming into treatment that had been working for like 20, 30 years and still working and having addictions issues, 10, 15, 20 years and still doing, in some cases, a case of wine a day and 26 or rye a day. And they're saying, how can this be? So the minister decided that what can we do as the Addiction Research Foundation to get into coming up with models that would be more effective in terms of dealing with working addicted people initially. So that was the start, really, of EAP in Ontario. It was basically a pretty narrow model of only addictions focused, but from there it went. So we grew that operation, and I met a lot of managers, mentored a lot of folks, and and just saw once again the deficits that a lot of managers have when they come to the table. They can be competent and dedicated, but like I'm looking now, Marie, at where we're at with the crisis in Ontario in human and health care. And this is why I'm just so delighted to be a part of the, of a group who are adding something extra to what managers and certainly employees can offer to patients who are being supported. But you go to any executive director in the long-term care field or the field of developmental disabilities, which is where I'm working primarily now, or to hospital administrators, and they're going to tell you that the crisis with dollars and the crisis of just people's lives are just taking an incredible toll on their employees. I talk about working to grow managers so that they can help employees who've got the 3 outs, the burnout, freaking out with folks, and also tuning out, just becoming indifferent, right? That's just the way we deal with it. So through the years, I saw what works, I think, in terms of management models. And I certainly saw 3 areas that didn't work or that don't work. And so the model that I'm teaching in developmental disability services and long-term care is got mindfulness at its head, because a lot of managers, as competent as they are and as dedicated as they are, they lack the ability to be where they are when they're there. They don't know they're present. I mean, they're at meetings, important meetings, and their mind, is, I got to pick up bread and way home tonight, or I got to go to the other meeting, even though they're talking to the people, right? And you just see that throughout. And I'm talking a lot of, certainly senior managers, but middle managers are the core, really, to make a difference, I think, in our human service and healthcare, the quality of it anyway. And I'm seeing managers, as I say, they're competent and they're dedicated, but their minds are someplace else often when they are, doing what they're doing.
Why do you think that is?
What is it? I think it's just, it's fundamentally because the human psyche is not architecturally suited to be present where we are. We have survived through hundreds and thousands of years and programmed ourselves to be in the past or in the future, because that's where survival came from. If you hung out in the present moment in those early days of jungle life, you didn't live and you didn't pass on, your predispositions, right? So we are naturally wired to be either living in the past or living in the future. We're just not designed to be present. And as a result, we bring all of that architecture, the brain architecture, into the jobs that we have. And not much wonder then we are in the middle of freeze, fear, fight, or flight at almost any incident, because there's more pressures on us, there's less dollars to do what we need to do, there's greater needs employees because of the 3 outs, and unless we can really bring in a management improvement in terms of the way they do their business, we're going to continue just to fall and fall and fall. I mean, you go to, say, any research you want, and you'll see patient satisfaction is diminishing. A lot of the new workers that are coming in and this is public knowledge, a lot of new workers coming in, they're getting high in the 90s in terms of their academic preparation, but they're lower and lower and lower in their actual compassion for people. But our inability to be what I call emotionally mature starts to then come into it. So mindfulness is a critical component of the model, this mindful and emotional managing that I teach. The mindfulness is the critical basis for it. But then I look at emotional maturity as a really important quality that, frankly, a lot of managers don't have. In fact, a lot of people don't have it. Right. We kind of say, well, if I get into trouble with my marriage or whatever, or I get in depression, then I'll go and get psychotherapy. But they don't understand that as we come out of the chute, and as we are coming out of adolescence into adulthood, unless we really proactively learn how to grow up, I mean, intrapersonally, I mean, learning those skills of inner stress management and being able to sort out our emotional predispositions, like coming out of that family where, dad and mom wanted a perfectionist, so I grew with a distorted sense of perfectionism, and now I'm, somewhat anal about it, right? Or a home where there was a lot of emphasis on what will people think, right? And I grew out of that home saying, oh, I got to be careful what people think, I got to get approval from other people and all that, or else a home where there's a lot of authoritarianism, I realized that, I got to be in control at all times, otherwise it's scary, And so people come out with these predispositions, and they come into adulthood and into senior positions and worker positions, and these predispositions come with them. So when situations each day are not complementing or aligning with their emotional predispositions, then they freak out, then they burn out, then they become tuned out, they become indifferent because they haven't learned emotional maturity. So my model basically says, based on mindfulness, sets us into a position where we can then look at being emotionally mature, being where we are when we're there, and working with these inner pieces. And it gives us a very, very powerful technology, if you will, to be better managers and frankly caregivers, because if caregivers don't have that, we're in trouble too.
That's a wonderful contribution because, at least one point in our lives, we will all be vulnerable in that kind of way.
Right.
Whether we're fortunate enough for it to only happen when we're on our dying bed, which is unlikely.
Yes, it is.
And those are the times where the greatest of compassion is required as a recipient. But then, of course, for these people that are constantly doing this day after day after day, how do they do it and remain whole?
Right. And if you're just relying on traditional academic preparation to be a nurse, to be a personal support worker, to be a doctor, where you've got all of the best practices given to you, if you're just relying on that day in, day out, and day out, it wears you down. It even pulls away from your energy system, And as a result, you're left looking for ways to tune out the stress, just kind of and I do a lot of work in the fields of long-term care and developmental disabilities, and I say what we're seeing there is more and more of the people who are supported will say, yeah, I'm reasonably well cared for, but I go for weeks without feeling cared about.
Interesting.
I feel they're good people, they're caring people. And I was talking to a nurse who was working in one of the agencies I'm with just a couple of weeks ago. She said, this isn't what I thought nursing was going to be about. She said, I go into shift and I just run from room to room to room. Right. She said, it's just so mechanical. It's like, I'm almost like one of those machines that kind of buzz, it kind of just that cold hum, She said, that's what I've been forced to be. I don't want to be that. Right. And so we have those nurses. We have other nurses who are, fearful of losing their jobs. And we have supervisors and managers that are more or less oblivious to these three outs that workers are going through, because they themselves are struggling, right? And they're not mindful. They're not mindful of what they're dealing with. Right. So you've got like a double compounded problem, resulting in lower and lower satisfaction levels of residents and patients,
And what would you like to see happen? I know that with you have a grand view of, or an overall vision of where this could go. Where would you like to see it go?
Well, I would like to see, if we could kind of king for a day, I would like to see, and I think it has to start at colleges and universities. I would like to think we're going to retool the family structure and get more of what I would call the essential values of compassion and caring about there. And there will be some of that, I think, and we'll continue to work. And certainly if we get into the early stages of elementary school, we can get mindfulness taught. So that would be certainly a part of the dream, you know,
Sure.
certainly part of the dream. But when we get qualifying personal support workers, nurses, docs, social workers, psychotherapists, if as a part of their essential core curriculum, they were to get training in mindfulness in terms of how to be present where they are,
Right.
in terms of how to deal with growing through their emotional insecurities, to develop what one would call emotional self-control, right? Where they can not suppress feelings, but work with them, you know, constructively internally. If we could see those kinds of courses starting to complement what we're doing now, because I think we're doing an excellent job in education in the competencies, and you know, some people criticizing education in Ontario. I say, hey, from an educational point of view, 90% of what's happening in Ontario, which is pretty good, is coming out of graduates of Ontario schools. So that part of it's not so bad. But what we're missing in terms of particularly human services and healthcare is we have to get these courses into those schools. And then we have to get agencies that are starting to say, you know, I'm prepared to put some budget aside to train my managers to learn how to be, because there's, you know, and there's tens of thousands of people already in the workforce. You can't wait till you get, you know, these coming up and graduating, because that's going to be 10, 15 years before they have meaningful roles.
Right.
So agencies now, and governments frankly, have to look at seeding some type of upgrading of people's compassion and mindfulness, sense of emotional maturity with their existing workers. And if that doesn't happen, I just fear that we're going to continue to go downhill. So that's why I'm pretty passionate about putting out this model that I'm developed with, you know, a lot of my colleagues about mindful, emotional, mature managing, and also its counterpart for the employees, which is conscious care and support, you know, in that field. So.
And you have a book in the works.
We do. We have a book.
It's exciting.
Yes, it is. Yes, Kindness Matters is the name of the book, and it's basically just what I've talked about. It's we have the textbook basically already out there, and it's the mindful and the emotionally mature managing. But its counterpart for family caregivers as well as professionals is Kindness Matters, and so we've taken a lot of the principles and turned it into kind of a self-help tool for families and professionals.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's great.
That is great.
I'd like to explore another point, and that is the notion of compassion and equanimity.
Yes.
Because you're a highly successful business person.
Mm-hmm.
You are also personally successful. And you have applied these, I can't even call them concepts, just ways of life,
Right.
into your very being.
Right.
And we see so little of it. And we've talked about this in the last little while.
Right.
So how do you see the whole notion of compassion and equanimity in what you're working with, and how do you see instilling more of that or training more of that?
Right, okay.
You've talked a little bit about that, but if you could talk a little more about it.
Right. Well, you made a good point. First of all, it does have to begin with you. You know, it's not only learning the concepts. You actually have to integrate those concepts so that each morning when you get out of bed, you're starting to be as mindful as you possibly can. Each day as you complete a formal practice session, which I absolutely say is essential. You will never get to Massey Hall and play the guitar unless you practice every day. And you're never going to get to being a mindful, compassionate person. And frankly, a happy, healthy person, unless you practice every day, whatever is important. Our culture does not support that. Our culture says start your day with CNN, you know, and trash TV and whatever else, and whatever newspapers got to offer us in terms of the latest tragedies. That's how most people start their day. Well, we're not surprised. I mean, it's garbage in, garbage out. Look how you start your day. Guess why you're yelling at that employee at 11 o'clock in the morning, or why you're needing whatever you do to cope with, with lots of TV or whatever. Unless you start to practice it yourself and bring it into your own life, then you're going to struggle to really pass this on to other people. So use the term equanimity. I mean, what we learn in this skill of mindfulness is to be present where we are. You and I, because you're a practitioner as well, many years, you're aware that you're here right now, right? You're aware that you're talking to Peter. Well, that's the first step. You're also aware of kind of what some of your body sensations are doing and some of the feelings you're having as a result of this exchange, right? This is not complex stuff. This is not rocket science. This is basically what mindfulness is.
Right.
So if you're having that and I'm having that, then we're going to communicate at a total different level. Even if you come to me and you offend me, even if you happen to bring a mood to this moment that is just really, not the best, I don't have to be drawn into that mood. First of all, I can watch my emotional predisposition wanting to be defensive or wanting to, kind of protect my turf, but I catch that in the moment and say, there's a tight chest, there's a weak arm.
Right.
Because the body's just trying to get some type of control over this situation, fear, freeze, fight, or flight again, right? So if I start my day with formal practice and just tuning up those skills of being present and being open, because as we do mindfulness practice, as you know, we very much look at the thoughts that are coming in each day and we just learn to let them go. Just objectively, just kind of, okay, for now, let's just let that one pass. Then we are not gripped and driven by those thoughts. As we watch them from out here as they come and go, then we have a choice whether to take those 50,000 thoughts and move with that one and not that one and this one, not that one, only because we know we're there. Sure. That's how we complement our life. And if we practice each day doing that little skill, then every minute of that day, we're going to be able to say, okay, is this a thought that I need to react to or not? Is this someone who, in spite of their mood, needs me to maybe raise my game in terms of compassion? Maybe I just need to just watch this body sensations and these thoughts trying to do what they're doing and just let them go. And as I let them go, compassion fills that vacuum. That's the beautiful piece about mindfulness practice is, you see me getting excited here, as we let those thoughts go and they don't grip us and drive us, then a natural innate compassion coming out of this vagus nervous system, this other whole nervous system that we have, it takes hold. And it really guides that moment. It's not that we lay on, I must be kind now because this person's been in a bad mood. That's just mental chatter. When you cannot be gripped and driven by the body sensations and your feelings and your thinking and just watch this process happen, you naturally come into a connectedness because we are designed to really, beyond the limbic system, that's our fear, freeze, fight, or flight survival, we have a system that's designed to be in harmony with nature. And you are part of nature and I'm a part of that. And so we want to be there. So compassion naturally arises. And this is what we're trying to instill in the managers and the employees that are working with people too. So you have to walk the talk and you have to practice it. And it's not complex. It just requires persistence. Yeah.
And you're living proof of it.
Well, I'd like to think that I'm definitely in the game. I will definitely, I want to be more humble, but I would say, yeah, I'm going to say that I'm in the game. But I'd like to just add this one little piece. You don't have to have thousands of hours of practice like you and I have had, Maria. The research is showing people doing like 15, 20 hours practice, and they are realizing some of these kinds of results. We're seeing this with really solid research out of Harvard Medical School, MIT, various places that are researching this. So, and you can just dial into Google any place, certainly your site or my site, but any other site, because we're not, we don't have an X on anything here. We're just trying to look up mindfulness and see what it's doing for, for other people, and seeing how quite readily you can become a part of that benefit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Quite literally, it's life transforming. We know that. You and I know that from personal experience. But what's exciting for me is that, you and I can have a conversation like this,
right,
and you're living proof of a successful executive who actually lives that. So it isn't something that only works under certain conditions.
That's a great point.
It works under all conditions. All it needs is some effort.
That's a great point. That's a great point, because I'm like most people. I struggle with my financial security. I've gone through my son just last year had a potential life-threatening. We go through life. It's not like we're immune from the chaos and the certain conditions that are brought to us. That's not the case. What we have to learn to be is complete and allowing from a internal point of view. We're always working passionately to change what can be changed out here.
Right.
But when we bring that, okay, let's bring those best internal skills of stabilizing our emotions and being aware of what we're doing, let's bring those to the chaos.
Right.
Let's see what happens. You're right, that's a great point. You know, and it's almost, to some extent, it's contrary to what a lot of the culture would suggest. The culture suggests, get, have, and achieve.
Right.
And you'll be happy, right?
Right.
What we talk about is building a life of happiness on becoming.
Right.
On becoming more present, becoming more compassionate, becoming more open to whatever the chaos and the bliss has to offer us, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we have not drank the Kool-Aid.
That's a fact.
It's just the way it is when you're present.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly. That's just the way it is. Yeah.
Oh, Peter, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful opportunity to have a conversation about things that really matter.
Oh, great. Well, it's been fun for me, so thanks for having me, okay?
Thank you.
Okay.